So today we're going to talk about pressing pause and to increase student learning through lecture breaks. So I wanted to first start off, as we did last week, with a little bit of a video. And let me just say, I've really enjoyed preparing for this workshop today. I found so many neat little pieces of information, and I'll share with you in this 1 second. But I was literally sitting in my office trying to find a great introduction for this, and all of a sudden,
I heard that you found it.
A big old cackle, because it just made me so happy to watch this.
We're missing some audio. Oh, choose the audio computer.
It's PC.
Okay.
It's going to be really loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen. What do we know about rituals? They're huge. You gotta have one of these tricks. No question. Maybe you say, how much to explain me? You shut your flag up. You don't get it. No. People might say, still make this trick. Silly man. You just need to know that. You want it's tricks to you. Any questions? No?
Bust the rhyme now, MOP now. What you want now? What you want now?
So, what did you think about that little video?
I wish my students could be that good. Closed captioning.
Say what?
It's not closed captioning.
Yeah, it was more like closed captioning.
I think he needs oxygen.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, it's interesting because one of the first things that when I went into research on pressing pause, the first thing that they talked about is our PowerPoints. We love PowerPoints, right? It's an excellent way of communicating. But sometimes what we found out is when we put exactly what we say up on the board, students are having to choose between listening to us or reading what's on the board because they can't actually do both at the same time. When you're reading, you're actually reading the words that are up on the board and you hear your words. You hear what you're reading in your head, but you don't necessarily hear what's going on. So it was one of the main points that started us, and I got a big old laugh out of the fact that everything that was happening to him was coming up on the PowerPoint. But what we want to do is we want to eliminate redundancy as much as possible when we are teaching. We're going to make sure that we are giving exactly the information that we want our students to have. We also want to make sure that we're not asking our students to choose between us and what's going up on the board, kind of like what I'm doing right now, purposely talking over what's happening. And then lastly, we're asking them to pay attention to what we want to do. So sometimes we need to give that pause to allow that to happen, to not be talking while words are coming up on the board and we're asking people to read and listen at the same time. So a lot of what we found today came from this one book, which is Stop Talking, Start Influencing, which is Hobart, which is the person you remember what you pay attention to. And then also this book right here, Hitting Pause, which is a really great book because it is 65 different exercises that you can use within your classes, and we're going to work through a few of them today. But so this is an excellent source to come directly in here, and it is in our teaching library. You'll be able to find it at the end of today. So the next thing that we've been talking over the past couple times, we've been talking about student success. So last time we talked about argwat, and for some of you who were here, you learned what argwat was. Does anybody know what, can repeat what argwat was? A stands for attention, R stands for review, G stands for
Goals.
W stands for why.
Why do we do it? And agenda and time.
And time, yes. So if we take the first 5 minutes and lay this out for our students, it helps them understand what's going to be happening throughout the class. And then after that, Scott followed up with sketchnoting, just a different way of organizing your ideas. Next comes asking the right questions, then followed by, after that, is going to be critical thinking. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cognitive science behind why pausing is important. We're going to identify the primary functions of pausing, explore quick and active learning breaks, and then I want you to come together and come up with a plan of how you will apply this to the classroom. And on Friday, all of a sudden on my Twitter feed, somebody I followed popped up, and I loved it. It was perfect timing. How many times have you been the most tired person at the end of the day?
How about the beginning of the day?
And beginning, middle, and end, yes. So we ask ourselves, what can we do within our classes to have our students more engaged? What can we do for them? And that's what we're going to kind of go through today. So I thought this little cartoon was an excellent opportunity for what happens a lot in our public school system. And sometimes, even when I was preparing for this workshop, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be talking too much. This is exactly what I said we should be doing, is not talking, and I have to deliver content. So there's trying to find a good balance between delivering the content, talking about it, but then actually getting students up and working. So it's used to focus attention, enhance retention of the information, and to emphasize key learning outcomes. And so if you look at those moments where you want to pause, and I want to encourage you, if there's something you want to take away today, is figure out what your key learning outcomes are within your class, and then surround it with exercises. It's what you really want to focus. Take those moments that you want to pause and integrate them directly into the class. So the word lecture comes from the Latin word legere, which, does anybody know what legere stands for? To pick out words. So if you think about this, this is a 13th century concept where people used to stand up at the front of the room and read out of a book, and every student would be in the room writing down every word that they said. That is the basis of a lecture. And if you think about it, we're still doing it today quite frequently in all of our classrooms. And we're asking our students to pick out what words to remember. You know what was also a very popular method in the 13th century? People were sick, what did they do? Come on, nurses. Bloodlet. So we're actually still doing something, lecturing today, that's been done for 7 centuries. So we're basically doing the same thing as bloodletting with our students. Has anybody seen Edgar Dale's Cone of Experience? If you haven't, 20% of what we hear our students will learn. Trying to make a case for this pausing thing. So today, I want to encourage you to add pauses to your lectures. A lecture pause happens when you close your mouth and your students start talking. It's as simple as that. And we're going to work on some exercises on how do we do that. My favorite quote from John Dewey. And it's very important to focus on the reflecting aspect of it, because we actually have to ask our students to stop and then reflect in a deeper manner. If you actually think about that, I think it's an important thing in every class to talk to your students about the difference between just regurgitating facts or regurgitating knowledge and actually trying to think about it on a different level. Specifically with our questions, when we talk to our students and we ask them in a pause moment to do something beyond just the previous point of listing or explaining, we need them to figure out how to apply, how to practice, how to analyze, create, evaluate. So there are 3 primary times for pausing: beginning, middle, and end. Which do you think is the most important? Middle?
Maybe
All of them. It's a trick question. Scott thinks it's the end. Let's see. So it grabs attention, preoccupation, allows students to leave the information at the door. We've heard of this before where you walk in and you just have a bucket by the back door and you say, okay, whatever's in your mind, I want you to just put it on this card and leave it by the door so you can focus your attention on what's going to happen. Students take better notes at the beginning of a lecture than at the end. It's pretty normal, right? Let's try something real quick. I want you to just listen, and I want you to see. I'm going to read you out some numbers, and I want you to see how many you can remember. No, don't write them. This is all memory, right? This is all about remembering what I'm saying because it's all there. Ready? Do whatever you need to do to open up your mind. 8, 6, 5, 16, 1, 23, 9, 15, 8, 21, 7. I'm going to read it one more time to you. And then after you get done, you can write down as many of them as you can on a piece of paper. Try it one more time. 8, 6, 5, 16, 1, 23, 9, 15, 8, 21, 7. Write down as many as you can.
That actually blends into what I've been reading the past couple days with my stuff.
Okay, who got the first one? 8. Who got 8 and then 6?
Oh shoot.
They had to be in order.
I
I remembered all of them. I just didn't remember the right order.
No, okay, you can check it off. You can do this because
Cheating.
sometimes our students don't remember what we say in order to. 5,
9B requires
8, 6,
a specific
5.
order.
16, 1, 23, 9, 15, 8, 21, 7.
But 8 was repeated.
Okay, so if you remembered 5, raise your hands. You can put your hands down if you did not remember 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. You remembered all 10.
No,
Look at
you said 11.
Oh, I did. 11. Sorry.
So I got 10. I have
You got-
10, but you repeated 8 twice.
Yes, I
I
did.
didn't write it twice.
Oh, okay.
I added 17.
No, that's great. It's just a great example of what happens to our students when we're teaching, right? We start talking, and there's only so much that they can memorize. There's only so much that they can learn before we need to pause for a second and ask them to go back. Then we go to our middle. Helps us to refocus, review, relieve cognitive load, to let that brain rest for a second. Let that brain recuperate so it can take in new information. It's exactly like a commercial. And then re-energize and refresh. Students need to pause midway through a class hour to rest. Research says they must have it. Then lastly, the end, to review, to reflect. So if you think about it, if the reflection is happening only at the end, maybe the end is most important. But why not add in reflection throughout?
I think they serve different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends on what you set out to do with each one.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do reflection of all 3 of them. It's just how you design it.
Right. And how you're actually putting it all together. Are you wanting them to put everything together at the end? All the concepts? How are you designing it? I think that's what you're coming across to say. Yeah. And it motivates your students to act. Creates a full circle. That's kind of what we choose to want to do. So without a proper close, learners can expect to recall less than 15 to 20% of the lecture without a conclusion. And I'm so guilty of this. Sometimes I'm rushing through content so much that I'm done talking and then they leave out the door. But they remember less that way. So it's important to provide that opportunity. So now I want you guys to do it. So for the first time, I'm going to have, you're going to choose one pause moment. So I'm going to give you guys mid-pause. So you can just spread those out, go around the table, and you're just going to share them amongst each other. Read one. The goal is to find one that you would like to implement. I'm going to give you guys the ending one. So I want you to choose one that you will like. So I'm going to ask the beginning table to talk about it. The ones that they found.
I'll go first. I liked this idea of what's in the box as a presentation tool. Say your syllabus is introducing a vague topic for the week. So you put something hidden under a box, and the students kind of have to guess what you would put in there to relate to the topic. So they've got a rapport going, and they're all discussing different items that they think would represent that topic for them. And then even before you've introduced the piece that you have and why you think it's important, they've already got their own mental ties to your topic.
And then when they're reading, they start thinking, okay, what are they going to have in the box this time? It actually ran through a certain period of time. Which one did you pick?
I chose the one called Crostini Board, and basically what it is you have students jot down like a short phrase of what they think the topic is, so like 1 to 3 words. And I really like the idea of it because it forces students to kind of like think about what's going to be the topic and kind of define it in their own words. And so they're thinking about like what's happening, but also as a teacher, if they're like way off the mark, like you can see like they don't know what this topic means. Maybe I need to specify.
I like this one called Adopt the Objectives. So it's kind of going back to some of those elementary school K-12 things where you put today's objectives on the board visible for everybody, and then you give the students colored dots, and like red's most important, yellow's middle important, and green is like not as important, and then the students thought them out where they think it should fall. I think that could be interesting.
And it also has them focus on what the objectives are.
It's priming their brains for learning for that day.
Because we read the objectives or we put them up on the board, but just imagine if they had to actually think about it just that extra little bit. Okay, our middle group here.
Has the note share, I'm already looking forward to that this semester, and the students really liked it. But what I the student knows, I handed out, and we did more of an abstract type of mind map, and then a linear. As I was talking about the process, so with those students were jotting down in those areas. Then after I finished one of the diagnoses, then we stopped, and then they got in the groups, and they compared what they had and so missed.
So describe to me the note share one more time, just because.
It's where they take notes, and then after you take a pause, and then compare the notes.
Okay, so they're comparing
I just
what
did
each
it a
other
little
thought
bit
was.
differently.
Yeah. And so then they were able to show how they put all their notes together. Yes. There's another one from the group.
With the talking about making, right? So, opportunity, either like video or something, right? What's wrong, or you want to audition for the so that's actually
Create a scenario that's wrong.
That's
Something
wrong.
is wrong. They know one thing is wrong, and so they have to pick out one thing that's wrong.
So it could be a room where the patient finds, like the tray that has food in it. So I have all the orders pulled out, and this is the patient going for surgery, what's wrong with it? And then it could be the food, he's going for surgery, so he cannot have it.
You guys do that with the simulation lab all the time.
Do that.
So I mean, you could go back and forth between what you experienced and then they have to pick it out afterwards.
That's very flexible.
And then
Which we've messed around a little bit with that, making sure like set up the rooms that are set up and just getting to them.
Right. Any more from this table?
That we call share.
Okay. What's that?
This is where they have an outline with some, like your outcomes or just pieces of what you're going to be talking about, and then they like fill it as like you talk, then you break, they can write down what they learned on that topic, and then they go to the next one. And eventually everything's becoming time to share that information. No, that was another one. Yeah.
Think, pair, share is one of those
I use those
all the time, and I didn't pull it out because I was like,
Everybody does think there's.
think, pair, share. It's funny. No. But I say that because people within my field, we go to our conference, and by day 3 of our conference, if anybody asks us to think, pair, share, we're like, please, do not ask us to do that anymore. What's our in group? What were some neat things that you saw?
I got distracted.
Okay. Diana.
I like the commitment to action.
Okay. Describe that.
I guess particularly with our content usually is spend an hour teaching these folks what to look for and all that, and then it's kind of nice when you watch them come up with what are you going to do about it. That's what this is. What are you going to do? So that's the application point.
just reminds me of the Artbot scenario that we had last time, and we told the committee for action where you asked us to go and apply in the past. So just reminded me.
And thank you, because you were one of the people who did respond to that discussion. I saw that this morning. Yes. I'm happy. So what we're doing is on all of our workshops this year, if you come, you participate, you answer the survey, you get a certificate that's released to you. And what we're going to do this year is we want to actually see how much actually gets applied within the classroom. So there's a commitment to action that I'm even going to give you today to see what we can do. And then it's literally just a repository of what all you have done, how you've applied it, or how you tried to do something. It takes 5 minutes, and what I'm going to do is at the end of the year, I hope that there's going to be a lot of people that I can just pick one or two things from, and we can publicly acknowledge you during the award ceremony, or then trying to apply it. We want our students to. Give me another ending one. Which one did you pick, Terry?
I didn't pick one.
Or was there one that you
basically
liked?
Scanning all of them because there was so much there. But from any of them that had opportunities for students to apply what it does. It wasn't just hearing it, but here's how we use it. It's not just, in other words, the whole Bloom's taxonomy, getting up beyond knowledge, comprehension, the application, analysis.
Yeah, and that's something to think about when you're thinking about beginning, middle, and end. Figuring out to what depth and what level you're actually wanting your students to go. And a couple of the other ones from the beginning that were out there was, the box where you leave your ideas by the door so they can focus. You're priming the mind as much as possible. Okay, now I'm going to pass out these little lesson planning worksheets. And on these worksheets, I want you to literally name the pause that you're going to use, approximate the time that's needed to do it, pick which location it's going to be, beginning, middle, or end, and then you're going to designate what topic, concept, or learning goal should be addressed by that pausing moment. Changes in directions, is it going the same thing that's on the sheet, or is there a little bit different? Just to have you practice those directions, and then any materials that are needed. This is just a sheet that you can go and reference quickly while you're getting ready to implement a pause moment within your class, and it'll help you do that. So feel free to grab one of these little worksheets and think of a moment within the next week where you can implement a pause into your class. So just really quickly, I want to read out 3 as you get ready to go. If we're going to explain what you learned today in class in one sentence to a child, what would you say? It's a great question I had. It's part of this 5-step closure one that I'm reading. Describe what you learned in class today in an elevator talk. In other words, what could you share with somebody in the time it would take for you to be on an elevator? So, really quickly, I challenge you and encourage you to take one of these pause moments, share your planning worksheet, just upload it, and then what worked. Try it out. If it worked, just short little description where it goes in there. Just a motion of caution, though. The research did say 3 things have to happen for pause moments to be successful. 3 things have to be there. Number 1, we have to commit to reserving time. If we do not plan the time, we will get distracted. So good intentions are not enough. Instructor must have a clear, structured, and detailed instructions. This is one of the reasons why on this little worksheet that you had there, I really said, are the instructions the same or are they different? Practicing those instructions are so important. And the instructor must include time to identify progress. That's part of that. That's John Dewey. That they have to reflect for them to learn. So to help you remember this today, on all your pause moments, I want you to remember the acronym STOP. It must be student focused. You must provide time for it. You must be optimistic about their learning, and it must be personalized. So hopefully you were introduced to some cognitive reasons why pausing is important. You identified the primary functions of pausing. You explored ideas for creating active learning breaks, and you now have a plan that you can go implement. That's it. Thank you, guys.